I will also agree with that. I think he remains a Laker. I think they're kind of handcuffed to that salary for this season. And I think it does hurt the Lakers' playoff chances. I know I'm a broken record, but I don't think you can compete right now with LeBron at a max or very near max salary. And hey, he's earned the right to have that salary, but it's gonna hamper them competitively. My prediction would be he signs some sort of deal and does the farewell tour in Cleveland next season. I could see that as being sort of the storybook ending to this career that is approaching. I would be tickled if he goes to New York. That would be an interesting situation to watch unfold. Like I said, it's our first wave of these free agency moves. Alluded to KD earlier, and we've given some analysis about that. I haven't really seen many people who have a negative thing to say about the Rockets off season. So I will open this up to you guys. We'll kind of go rapid fire as we go through all these topics today, since there have been so many relevant moves. But just a quick recap, and I do have to check my phone to see all these moves. Just recently, Dorian Finney-Smith signed with the Rockets, another versatile wing player. Fred VanVleet, his contract was restructured to a more team-friendly deal, kind of splitting up the last year of that team option deal. So he went team-friendly for the Rockets. Clint Capella is back. Welcome back to the Rockets, good sir. And then we had the Jabari extension that was reported. We also got news that KD is extended as well, or plans to, at less than the max. I think it's like 10 million overall underneath the max. So, Alan, I know you are a fellow Rockets fan, and yeah, we have two Rockets fans here, but we try to keep this objective and realistic. So, Alan, quickly, your thoughts on the Rockets? I mean, is there any chance another team has a better offseason than the Rockets right now? And are there any negatives that I haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I think the Rockets have had a great offseason. Um, I would say, um, so yeah, I think the Rockets have had a great offseason. I think when I look at what they've done, the one place I'm a little concerned about is a guard with playmaking skills. They're a little light on that. I think they're really depending on Amon and Reed to step up. Um, I mean, Aaron Holiday gives them some insurance there too. And yeah, you didn't mention they got Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green, and Jay Sean Tate back for 1 year
That's right.
deals for really cheap. I mean, that's continuity. Um, I think I think they've done a great job. I think it's probably one of the top off seasons so far. Um, but I think Denver's coming up on them as far as like a team to if you're ranking the best off seasons, Denver is I think right up there with them now, especially after the DHJ vet minimum signing that just happened like an hour ago.
Justin, your thoughts on the Rockets just quickly. I agree with what you said there, Alan. Well put.
Yeah, not too much. I'll kind of leave it to you guys for the in-depth Rockets analysis. The only thing I'll really add is with this team, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like there's a lot of, I guess, it fills out the roster with some veteran leadership and some experience. I'm very curious when the season starts, the first 10 to 20 games, if things do not go according to plan, how do you feel this team will adapt to the blame game? Because last year, I think the Rockets were still under the radar a little bit. I think they're a younger team. This year, all of a sudden, the expectations will be sky high. If I'm wrong, I don't think I am in terms of, going at having a deep playoff run. So just very curious in terms of what you guys think is going to happen if the Rockets have a slower start, what this happens there.
Well, I think with KD comes a bigger target on your back, right? And bigger expectations. I think though the realistic take is that you want to have KD play for at least half the season. Let's see how his health is doing. And then you want him there, the timing to be right for him to be there in the playoffs. I think if those two things happen, then overall you can't get too angry about the Rockets season. But yeah, teams will expect more of a challenge playing them now. I think though, given the era that the Rockets are coming out of, I don't really see that seat getting hot for Coach Udoka. I mean, you guys mentioned in the KD conversation that he was extended as well, so there's extra security there too. Um, and I think it would take some time for that seat to get hot and for fans to get really upset. Yeah, if they start like 0 for 10, then any team is going to be freaking out, but I don't see that happening. Alan, how about you?
Yeah, it's the same. I think there are high expectations, but I think um, I, I just don't think that when you look at the makeup and what they gave up to get KD, I I I don't think Jalen Green not being there is going to be a huge deal. Dylan missed a lot of time last year that allowed Amon to really step in some places. So I think they'll be fine. And I think Ime's teams typically start slow anyway, so I think there's an expectation that they might be, at 500 after the first 10 games, and then that I think the first 20 games is where you really start to look at where they're at and get an idea of what they're going to do.
Yeah, well said. I do think, Rockets fans should temper expectations. Like, again, let's see what KD's health looks like because he is a pretty crucial piece of what they were missing this last playoff run. And I also, for me, I can't really, in the playoffs yet, put them above what we just saw the Thunder do. Denver is looking scary with things that they've done that you've alluded to, Alan. So, temper your expectations. And this also is a 37-year-old KD. But, for now, I'm pretty warm on like Western Conference Finals, maybe a good kind of target here. To me, the moves and the youth of the team, I'm not expecting like championship out of the gate, but I know a lot more people are more passionate about it than I am. So we'll see how this plays out and keep an eye on the pulse of that team. We got to keep moving. And another significant thing that has happened over the course of the offseason, of course, you have Jason Tatum getting injured during the playoffs and the news that unfortunately that was an Achilles injury. So he's going to be out presumably all of next season. And we've got new ownership for the Celtics. And now we've seen pretty clearly that I think this ownership is not interested in being in these high cap aprons and the penalties that would incur. We've seen Kristaps Porzingis dealt to the Atlanta Hawks. We'll talk about them in a little bit. We've also seen Jrue Holiday dealt off of this roster. Justin, I want to start with you for this one. Thoughts on the Celtics just blatant salary dump here? I mean, there may be more moves to come.
Yeah, I think it's very curious to see where this team's going to go. I think it's no secret that the previous season here was a pretty disappointment with Jason Tatum. I'm surprised that they let go of Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, I'm biased. I really like him as a player, despite him being, somewhat injury prone. But I do think he has a lot of potential, and I think he's going to make Atlanta very happy. But I think it's going to come down to it's someday, and I think it's going to happen very soon. Tatum and Brown breaking up. I think that is an inevitable possibility, especially with this new ownership.
Yeah. And I don't really have a sense if it was like a performance-based thing or more purely about the money. Alan, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think the Celtics are done. I saw a report earlier today that said that they're still exploring other moves. Um, it seems like ownership is definitely does not want to pay a lot for a team that's not going to that they're not they don't have high expectations for next year. Um, it's kind of the opposite of gearing up for a championship where you kind of spend a lot of money to to bring in a bunch of players. They know they're not going to compete for a championship, so they're kind of offloading all the money they can for the short term, but at the same time they're also damaging their long term. So I don't. The salary stuff is just weird to me sometimes in this case. I'm not sure why you don't just make a couple of moves here and there and stay the course, but I think they've made their decision what they want to do. That's ownership for you.
Yeah, really interesting, and probably a number of factors. I mean, of course, Tatum being out impacts things, but I really saw this team as still, especially Halliburton being injured, and now we know Miles Turner's dealt, has signed somewhere else. We'll talk about that more as well. Um,
Real
but you
quick,
have a
Matt.
chance, I think, to compete. Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say I wanted to add real quick that I why not run it back? Make a couple of moves
exactly.
here and there, but why not run it back and see if Jaylen Brown can have a Scottie Pippen 94-95 season and be that much stronger when Tatum comes back? I just don't get it.
Totally agree. And then you also have Porzingis in a contract year where when he was in Washington, you guys probably recall he played very well in his contract year before being dealt to the Celtics. So you have like you said, Justin, too. I mean, potential Porzingis is going to have a very good season. And let's also talk about that team with the new look Atlanta Hawks. I mean, some people saying now, man, this team is loaded. You're seeing, of course, the injuries in the East and the Celtics potentially just willfully bowing out. Um, how are you feeling about the new look Hawks? Allen, I'll start with you for this one.
I think they made smart moves, particularly the Derek Queen trade. And I think they've made some smart moves. I wouldn't put them in the contender. I still have them I have them making the playoffs now, though, and probably second round. I still don't think they're strong enough to be a contender. And honestly, I'm not sold on Trae Young yet. And I think that's kind of be where they're where I'm kind of like, hey, let's slow your roll a little bit. I don't think they're a contender yet. But I think they've made some smart moves for the future, and I think that Trae Young trade is going to hit like crazy.
Justin, how do you feel about the Hawks looking at what they've done early on here?
Yeah, I'll present another question. So, Alan, what do you mean by that hit like crazy? By the outrage of the Hawks fans trading him, or the benefit of the Hawks not having Trae Young? What do you mean by that?
I think a little bit of both. I think there'll be a lot of uproar, but I think also the Hawks are going to get a pretty good haul from some desperate contender or some
Really?
team.
Oh,
And I think that'll be better for the Hawks in the long run, combined with the moves they've been made this offseason.
I'll ask another. This is interesting. I'll ask another question, and then we can move on. It seemed with the with the KD trade, that it was very uneven in terms of the value in terms of that transaction. So with Trae Young, are you saying that there could be a team out there that could over basically trade in terms of getting Trae Young? So basically, they would send a bunch of picks. Basically, it might be an uneven value just to get Trae Young, who I agree with you, Alan. I think we've seen enough of him that I think he's fairly overrated as a number one option on a team.
Yeah, Justin, I think that I, I I know the KD trade is what it was, but Trae Young is still young, and I think there are teams and GMs out there who think the Atlanta situation just isn't right for him.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I'm sure, and there are also teams that have to make up GMs that have to make a big splash. Um, I'm thinking of maybe a guy named Rob Pelinka. Um, and I would not be surprised to see a Trae Young Luka Doncic pairing at some point in the next few years.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, I have similar feelings and doubts about Trae Young as that 1A option, which is why like I don't think Porzingis comes in here and takes over as that 1A option. It's still Trae all day for Atlanta, and I went the other year saying Atlanta, I think it was 2 seasons ago, saying Atlanta was going to have a revival under Quinn Snyder. And yeah, I was totally wrong and missed that. So, hey, maybe it's a little bit personal. It's not, but I have serious doubts about the Hawks. I do think they're going to come up another level. I do think they have some nice pieces in place. But yeah, I'd be very curious to see if this is the year that Trae Young is dealt. And there could be a lot of suitors. Moving right along, another team in the Eastern Conference that did moves, not quite Celtics-esque in some ways, maybe more perplexing, but there's some good and some bad. The first thing, we'll start with the positive. The Bucks pull Miles Turner from interdivisional rival and finals participants, the Indiana Pacers. Been rumored for years that Miles Turner was going to be out at Indiana. Every trade deadline, right, guys, for like the last couple of years, who's getting Miles Turner? What's going to happen here? Well, I guess Indiana did not want to spend and put themselves into that certain position in the cap. And a result that we're seeing from that is the Bucks pick up Miles Turner. I find that element of this really tasty, that we're kind of increasing that rivalry. Team that already has sort of a moderate to moderate hot rivalry from past regular season matchups since Giannis has been in Milwaukee. And then we have on the other side, Damian Lillard, we found out today, big news, has been waived. You never expect to hear that about Damian Lillard, but they've gotten out of that contract. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be $22 million per year for the next 5 years, a hit against their cap. So it's a little bit of falling on your sword. You're reducing your cap a little bit. And I do wonder, what is known about his medical and things like that. Obviously, we want to see more Dame time happen. But Justin, I'll throw to you just your thoughts overall on the Bucks, because I think Turner's a positive addition, but there's a lot here.
I find this move puzzling. I think with Damian Lillard, we talked about how desperate the Bucks were. I don't know if you remember, it was in the lab in terms of their draft pick situation, not looking that great in the next few years, and just having this salary cap hit doesn't help things. I'm wondering with Giannis, I don't think he's happy about this. I just think you tried this experiment, and now, no disrespect to Miles Turner, but is he going to be the answer that pushed him back into title contention? I don't think so. And you lose a player like Brook Lopez, who I thought was pretty good for them. So I'm really worried about this. And if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm concerned that Giannis wants out, that he's gone. I mean, how many times you mentioned, I forgot which player were you mentioning before that? Oh, Miles Turner. Yeah, that he was always at the trade deadline. Giannis's name has come up as well. I mean, how many times have we heard Giannis to Miami? Giannis to Miami. So to me, I don't see this making him happy. I've seen conflicting reports in terms of he's upset, he's happy. I don't know. But if you ask me what's his reaction to all this, my guess would that he'd be not too pleased with what's going on right now.
Yeah.
On your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, Chris Haynes tweeted out earlier that Giannis is not happy, particularly with the way that Dame was waived. Apparently, Dame wasn't even given notice of it. He found out the same way everybody else did. That's not good. That's and word travels. Dame is well liked by a lot of players in this league. Word travels. If you have some of those future Bucks picks, those are going to be a pretty valuable commodity. So hang on to those and start trading them around, to get the people you need. I don't know what the Bucks are doing. I mean, are they running with KPJ as their point guard? Matt and I can tell you from experience, good luck. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Some big concerns and red flags. I've always been leaning on the side of, hey, I'd love to see Giannis stay in Milwaukee. I still would love that. I generally kind of like that continuity and chance for dynasties, etc., or even just like face of the franchise situations. But this is getting to the point where, like you emphasized there, Alan, I mean, it's borderline management malpractice, the way they handled that Dame situation. So we'll see what comes of it. moving right along, I mean, a team that I just saw before moves were made, there were all these rumors. I'm sure you guys saw it, and questionable statements by the team president that they were going to be trading Jokic. Now, I don't think that was the intention of the quote if you looked into the full context of what was being said, but the season kind of ended in a dumpster fire sort of fashion. And then the playoffs recuperated for the Denver Nuggets, of course, that I'm talking about. And now we've seen some, I think, corrections and some adjustments here, and even some callbacks to the past for the Nuggets with moves that they've made. I mean, I think biggest thing right off the bat is they've gotten off the Michael Porter Jr. contract. That was a big objective for them. You know, unfortunately, injuries have been a factor, and they're just, I think, hasn't been enough growth to justify that contract from their side. And so they trade him to the Nets along with a future first round pick for Cam Johnson. Cheaper contract, easier contract to deal with. So I think everyone's in agreement that that's probably a positive move for the Nuggets. They also bring back Bruce Brown. There's the callback to the past. And more moves have even gone down today since before recording. Alan, what are your thoughts on the Nuggets? Are they restoring your faith here in this franchise and in Jokic's tenure with them continuing?
I love what they've done, and as a Rockets fan, I hate it because they are right back up there. I mean, first and foremost, they secured David Adelman as their coach, which I can't think you can't overstate that enough. He comes from an extremely intelligent coaching family. His late brother is kind of the guy who was behind, who was advising Spoelstra during the Heatles era. Um, you know, his dad implemented some of the most inventive NBA offenses we'd seen in the 2000s with the Kings. I mean, can you imagine Jokic in that offense? I think, and now with some shooters around him who aren't Michael Porter Jr. Because MPJ made some really questionable decisions in the playoffs. There were several moments in the playoffs where you were like, what is he doing or what is he thinking? Cam Johnson, from all intents and purposes, from everything I've heard, is a very cerebral, very smart player who will flourish next to Jokic. I love what they've done. I think they put themselves right up there. I think they'll be vying with the Rockets for that number 2 spot in the West.
Justin, you're closest to the situation, at least geographically. Are you feeling the excitement in the area, and how do you feel about those moves as well?
Yeah, you mentioned the comments made by Josh Kroenke. Besides that, I think they made a nice recovery. I mean, anytime you put trade and your best player in the same sentence, especially here in Denver, just due to what happened with Melo, I understand the circumstances were different, but nevertheless, he's a superstar player here. You never want to hear that. So I think they've done a good job of erasing that memory. I just want to read you this from Brendan Vogt. He's a former guest of our show, covers the Denver Nuggets for DNVR, a very intimate relationship with that team in terms of his knowledge of not only the players on the court, but the front office. He said regarding MPJ being dealt, I think it was time. This feels like the right move. If Porter works any less harder to be available, then none of this ever happens. None of it. He should be remembered as a champion here in Denver and onward. And then he says, incredible offseason so far by the Denver Nuggets. Really great work by Ben Tinsler and John Wallace and their staff. Love the Barea hire too. And then they got Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. So I just think it seems like kind of what happened with Michael Malone. It was like a purge. Like a lot of negative energy has been like sent out from this organization. I think it's revitalized what's going to happen with the Nuggets. And I think it's smart transitioning to kind of the second half of Jokic's career here in Denver and making sure that he stays here. So hopefully the results happen on the court. And I think that if it does, I think that bodes well for Denver in terms of eliminating any trade talk and making Jokic still feel happy here. So I think overall, like you said, Alan, that this goes a long way in making Denver a perennial power back in the Western Conference.
And if they pry Jared Dudley away from the Mavericks to be their chief head assistant, that's a huge win. I mean, Dudley was practically an assistant coach during his last few years of playing, and is well regarded by both players and coaches. So it's a win situation for them.
Well regarded by me too. I loved watching that guy on the bench in those later years. Yeah, well said. And shout out to Brendan Vogt, friend of the show. I believe we had him on right after the extension was signed for Michael Porter Jr. So that's interesting to see that come full circle. Make sure you guys are following him. He does great work. Last topic, you guys, and then I know we got to run. So a lot here. We've got a lot to talk about in a little bit of time, but we're going to attempt it. LeBron James opted into his player option. I believe $52 million. He's 40, going to be 41, and has signaled, maybe you guys want to elaborate on this, but has signaled that there's not enough on this roster and LeBron would like to compete for a title. I find that interesting, seeing as how everyone seems to agree the Lakers pulled off one of the biggest heists last season at the trade deadline, getting Luka, of course. But now there's not enough on the roster. Early reports that I've seen say that there's really no interest to trade for LeBron's salary. And I'm not sure where that would happen other than if Cleveland wanted to do like a farewell tour for LeBron, but they're also competition is in mind there. Maybe we see that. LeBron's a power player. There's no doubt about that. He's been the most powerful player in the league. Just a few years into his arrival, maybe even earlier than that. Do you guys think LeBron stays in LA, and are the Lakers handcuffed by this opt-in? Alan, I'll start with you.
I think he stays in there for this year, unless the Knicks start slow.
Interesting.
So let's hear your fantasy scenario. What happens there if they start slow? And
I think if
the trade machine.
I don't have the trade machine in front of me, but if the Knicks start slow, I think they do everything they can to get LeBron there. I think it's all about the money, and it's a place LeBron I think would want to go. But I think he stays in LA, and I think he signs as a free agent and a sign and trade somewhere else next year.
Justin, your thought on if you think he would stay in LA, or, just kind of impact of him opting in, which I think we all saw coming.
I think after the Luka trade, all bets are off. But just to have a prediction, I agree with Alan. I just wonder what this LeBron wants. They got Luka already, and just him going to another team. I don't know. Kind of the era of like the super team is over. So I don't really know what he's going to accomplish other than going back to Cleveland, like you were saying, Matt, for a farewell tour, just to end his career. And it seemed pretty peculiar too. I know I kind of dismissed it. I don't know if Matt, you remember when we were first starting the show, about LeBron arriving in LA, about his business ventures and that being a major factor. But it seems like he set roots in LA in terms of ventures outside of the basketball court. So I realized that, he has a private jet. He can get anywhere he wants. It's 2025. But I'm just curious if he wants to like uproot everything just to play another couple of years. It just seems kind of like a weird move, unless it's for Cleveland, unless he just wants to, go out there. I just wonder, him going to New York, I just find that a little peculiar to me. But I don't know. Stranger things have happened. But I do agree with Alan. I think he remains a Laker, at least for this year.
I will also agree with that. I think he remains a Laker. I think they're kind of handcuffed to that salary for this season. And I think it does hurt the Lakers' playoff chances. I know I'm a broken record, but I don't think you can compete right now with LeBron at a max or very near max salary. And hey, he's earned the right to have that salary, but it's going to hamper them competitively. My prediction would be he signs some sort of deal and does the farewell tour in Cleveland next season. I could see that as being sort of the storybook ending to this career that is approaching. I would be tickled if he goes to New York. That that would be an interesting situation to watch unfold. We'll talk about this more along with many other topics in future episodes of In the Lab. Once again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know your thoughts on all these deals. Where were we on the money? Where did we maybe miss the mark in our predictions or analysis? We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about all that. We got to run. We have exciting stuff coming up in like the next 10 minutes that you guys are going to see eventually. So we're going to get to that and peace out for now. But for Alan Munzler and Justin Goodrum, I'm Matt Thomas. We'll see you next time on In the Lab, and peace out.
See you later.
Later.